wait a minute, the reason why the Russians are there in the first place is because of that vacuum that we left there.
Right. When we said there's a red line.
There's a red line. And so he let the Russians in that. Yeah. The Russians haven't been in the Middle East in, 40 years?
Since Afghanistan.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so they haven't been there
and
the
we
whole
were the
time.
reason why they left, because we armed the Afghans.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a real mess that we got here, and I don't know exactly how, but I can tell you what, it's not going to help anything bringing them here.
No, it sure is.
Oh, absolutely not.
Sure
Absolutely. I can say I support don't support him in everything, but I support our governor right now when he said that he would like to have a conversation with Washington, along with some of his the Council of Governors. They said, wait a minute, let's put a pause on this. Let's have a vetting process. Let's get with my administration and my people, and let's find out what's the best way to go about this. He want to put a pause, and you've seen that just recently Jesse Jackson spoke out and said, Michigan should welcome the Syrian refugees. I want to say to Mr. Washington, because you're not a reverend, I want to say to you, why don't you have them come to Chicago?
Mr.
And they
Jackson.
can be Mr. Jackson. They can be a part of the protesters. That's right, because it's chaos and there's a lot of right now. We know every week you hear about murders going on in Chicago. So no, they don't want to have them in Chicago.
Well, it's interesting. Just yesterday, Breitbart announced that Texas dropped the request for the restraining order in Syrian refugee resettlement lawsuit. So somehow the Attorney General in Texas is being pressured by the federal government to allow refugees to come in, even in light of the situation that we have in this country. I would call this a red alert.
So
that is a red alert.
Wouldn't you?
Absolutely, it is a red alert.
The question that nobody's asking is what is the ultimate goal of bringing these people in? What is it?
They say humanitarianism.
But we know what theirs is.
Yes.
We know what their goal is.
Yes. To have influence on this country.
It's not just ISIS and it's not just Al Qaeda, but it is the Islamic faith, the Islamic system that wants to control the world.
That's right. That's right. In fact, that's interesting that you say that, because as I had said a little earlier, I personally don't feel that it's an issue of faith.
That's right.
Because we do have a constitutional right to freedom of religion.
Yes. And they use it against us.
It's a legal system. It's the law. It's the rule of law. Are we going to have the constitutional rule of law that protects the unalienable or inalienable rights of all men for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Or are we going to be controlled by Sharia law that allows such horrific things as stoning people to death? And that's the focus that I wanted to bring into the conversation today. Last week I was listening to your show when I was I had to go to this continuing ed class, which is another big government crushing of private industry by forcing us to learn all of these rules and laws and regulations and sections. But I was listening to you guys. In fact, I called in, and you really had a great show last week, and talking about this issue of Syrian rebels being allowed into the country. And I wanted to do a little bit of research into the issue of the Muslim background, the historical look at it. And I came upon this movie called The Stoning of Soraya M. This was a movie that was produced based upon a true story in 1986. Now, people will say, "Oh, that's such a long time ago." This goes on still today. But this is a story of an innocent woman who was charged with adultery because it was because her husband wanted to marry a younger woman and he couldn't afford to support two wives. And this woman was literally put in the ground, and this is a custom. This is a law. This is a punishment for adultery, to be buried in up to your waist or up to your neck, and the villagers take rocks and literally stone you to death. And there's a facet of the Islamic law that says that you don't want the stone to be too large so that you would die with being hit by one or two of them. And they don't want
it to go on.
Yeah, they don't want the stones to be too small that wouldn't inflict any pain. They want the process to be the painful.
Yeah.
And the suffering.
The suffering of being hit over and over and over again in the head with rocks being thrown at you. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. But this movie, The Stoning of Soraya M., I'm going to try to bring to the community as an event. I'm going to try to work in conjunction with Women Defending America. That's that group that Arlene Allen and some other ladies have organized.
Nice.
And make it an event. And I want to invite all of the liberal women in the community. I want to invite the progressives. I want to invite the people who are sitting on city councils and state legislators to this showing of this movie so they can see firsthand exactly what we are importing into our country that our daughters are going to have to live through if this happens.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
And the thing is that they do not give up any of these ideas about their religion. You know, we make it
or customs.
Yeah, but when you go into their countries, they do not allow any difference to be settled into their country.
Yeah.
If you come into that country, you're going to go by their rules. I'm going to read some rules of countries like the Gulf states that won't accept any of these Syrian refugees.
Oh,
they won't accept any of them.
Yep, you asked that.
They settle it. They accepted them, but they're not accepting them as refugees. They're calling it something because they don't have a refugee program.
Yeah.
Under the UN's 19, I think it's the 1951 refugee program because they don't have a welfare state.
They don't accept them. Any of them. I read that they haven't accepted any of them.
Well, it's interesting because you asked a very important question last weekend, and it was why don't these hordes of military-age men from these Islamic countries stay in their own country and fight for their own rights?
For your own.
That's right.
But you want to come here and change our system
and destroy our rights.
And we have compliant members of our justice system here that will allow people to have anything they want, do anything they want. When you talk about having protected classes, that was never an intent of the Founding Fathers.
That's right.
And we need to look at our justice system here, and we need to start saying one thing. Because, like, you notice that when Donald Trump said something about putting up some lists and checking people out and stuff like that. Oh, everybody wants to say, oh, that's fascist and all of that nonsense. But what are the Obama administration asking for? What are all the Democrats asking for? They want to do better background checks on you and I because we want a gun.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Well, that's fascists right there.
Right.
Absolutely. They're the ones that are the fascists. Absolutely. They want to, again, law-abiding citizens. Again, the criminals can get guns. Regardless, you can take you can try to confiscate, of course, you could. I know they couldn't find your Joe Biden 12-gauge shotgun, Phil.
That's right.
But
when they find it, they ain't gonna want it. They're gonna be sorry they did.
They're not gonna get that out your head. But matter of fact, but that's what Joe Biden said. That you better get you a 12 gauge, and I don't agree with nothing he said. But he said he go prowl around with a 12 gauge shotgun.
But
and you know what I realized with that 12 gauge shotgun, you don't need a gun permit to go buy that like a handgun. See, a handgun you need a gun permit. Yeah. See, that was something very telling that when he said that. I thought about that. I said, you know what? When I went and bought my first 12 gauge, I didn't need a gun permit. I just walked in a gun show and bought that and took it out. Yeah. But a handgun, you have to go through all these different.
It just been in the last couple of years that they did that. I mean, because like when I was a kid coming up, people had walked around with guns, in their cars and stuff like that. I mean, it was a regular thing. You've seen it. People were very cavalier about it. After the Kennedy assassination, they tightened up on it. But
didn't you used to be able to drink a beer in your car while you were driving too?
Yeah, and they used to do you like. You remember Andy Griffin?
Yeah.
When the Otis would come in and let herself in and out of the jail.
Right.
Well, that's basically what they used to do. and I know for a fact because I did do a little bit of that when I was a young guy. But anyway, we are in the last few minutes of the show, and sadly, but that time really goes fast. But Del, is there some?
Well, I just want to say, man, whatever. Please, we have to protect our country, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do everything in my power to protect our country, and call your governor and say, let's put a halt on us accepting any more refugees in this great state here.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that our audience go to artofmichigan.com and listen to some of our archived programs. I think there's a lot of good information. My famous quote comes from Donald Trump today. He said that even if waterboarding doesn't work, the scumbags deserve it.
Yes. That's the one thing that we need. We need some people that will stop this political correctness nonsense.
Yes, sir.
And get to the truth of the matter, because the country is really going down because people are afraid to say what they believe or what they mean. They bite their tongue basically, and we've gotten to the point now where this is dangerous. I mean, people see something, and 12 people lose their lives, and 12 people are grievously injured.
Yes,
because people are cold-blooded. I mean, these people, takes a rock and stone somebody. Yeah. I couldn't do it.
I'm going to continue the discussion of the stoning of Sayora M. next weekend.
All right.
And I think that we need to make sure that we look into this Sharia law and condemn it. That's what needs to be done. So see you next week, folks. Invites the WHAM Talk 1600 listeners to continue the roundtable discussions by mailing correspondence to Art of Michigan, Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan 48135.
Or follow Phil and Del at artofmichigan.com. You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com. And most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and tell a friend.